Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining, and we're going to get started in just a moment. This is our AI Summer Series brought to you by the Rogue Workforce Partnership, and I am Mary Lockwood. I'm the Executive Director. Today, we're going to be discussing the role of AI, robotics, and automation in the transportation industry. But before we get started, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Firstly, you will notice that there are a couple RWP employees monitoring the chat. What we'd like you to do is just keep video and audio off, but we do want this to be an interactive session. So if you have any questions, anything like that, please feel free to enter them into the chat and we will be made aware. We'll talk for about 40 minutes to our guests today. And at the end of the 40 minutes, we'll go ahead and open it up for Q&A, and the guests will answer the questions that you have. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you today to our guests. The first is Mike Card, and Mike's the president of Combined Transport. Combined Transport is a family-owned trucking company in Central Point with a fleet of nearly 400 trucks that have been operating all throughout the country since the 1980s. As its president and the son of the founder, Mike's in charge of leading the fleet and is a national voice in the trucking industry, who has formerly served as the chairman of the American Trucking Association. His company has a bit of a Brady Bunch origin story, and that is when his dad remarried a widow with three kids of her own. The blended family inspired the name Combined Transport. And Mike still likes to joke that it was the Brady Bunch, except with a lot of knives and cussing. So, welcome to Mike. And we also have Lauren Brown, and Lauren's the district manager of Rogue Disposal and Recycling. Rogue Disposal and Recycling is a family-founded waste and recycling company that's operated in Southern Oregon since the 1930s. As district manager, Lauren oversees the day-to-day operations of the fleet and staff here in the Rogue Valley. His journey in the waste industry began in Alaska with Rogue Disposal's parent company, Waste Connections, and brought him down to Oregon several years ago. Trading Alaskan winters for the Rogue Valley is a pretty solid trade, he says. So, welcome to both Mike and Lauren. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
So, my first question is for the both of you, and it is that you're both in charge of moving a lot of pieces around Southern Oregon. You're running fleets, you're managing routes, and you're making hundreds of real-time decisions about people and materials moving through our state every single day. When you hear the term AI in the context of your industry, what is your honest first reaction? Are you excited? Are you skeptical? Are you somewhere in between?
Well, I guess since I got the short straw, I'll start first, Mary. My reaction is somewhere in the middle. Of course, this is what ChatGPT told me to say because I asked it, how I should answer this question. But I am kind of in the middle. I get really excited about the new technology that we can use, but I'm also a little skeptical, as I'm skeptical about everything, but I am skeptical about the hype and how people use it, right? I mean, our industry has had a lot of technological changes that has really changed our industry. GPS, the routing systems, electronic logging devices, mobile communications that we now have on board our trucks. These things have totally changed our industry. So I'm excited about the potential that AI and this kind of stuff has for the trucking industry. We're already using it. We've got some great examples I'll talk about in a little bit. But I don't want people just used to AI because it's the fashionable thing. Yeah, we all use it for emails and some things like that. But if we're using it to solve problems, that's what I get excited about.
Yeah,
That's great.
I'll hop right in there, and I'm probably about the same with Mike. Though maybe a little bit different order. You get excited initially because it is something new and it's cutting edge, and you think of some of the benefits, and then you kind of go into depending on how we use it, is it going to help or hurt? So I end up somewhere in the middle. But just like Mike said, there's been so much introduction of technology in even our industry that this is just kind of the next step for us and to gain efficiencies, to maybe expand the bandwidth of your employees, make it easier, whether it's in a neighborhood, on routes, or in an office, or how we forecast revenue and expenses and things like that. All those things give bandwidth for us to find other things that we, find exciting in our day-to-day job, and maybe some of the monotonous stuff that we'd rather not do, or we'd rather leave to somebody else. We can put kind of on AI's shoulders and go that way. So somewhere in between, but I know it's going to be around for a long time. I know it's going to progress. A little bit of the unknown is the skeptical, scary part of things. But I think that's kind of our human nature. So look forward to the future, and who knows where it develops.
Okay, really good. Thank you, both of you. Let's dive a little bit into your individual businesses and what you're doing today. So, Mike, this first one's for you. From where you sit running a fleet today, where is AI, robotics, automation proving itself useful in trucking? And what do you see for the future related to?
Yeah, like I said, I'm excited. We see AI in three specific ways. One is decision support. Um, it can analyze so much more information so much faster than we can. We get these contracts from shipping our shippers that are very robust, and everybody's got different terms. AI can jump in, analyze, and help us make decisions about what we want to do with our business. It's like having another experienced executive in the room that we can ask questions to back and forth. So decision support, and I've got a lot of examples of that. That's one thing. Second is in communication. I was joking about our emails and how to talk to people. It's fantastic for that. But the key thing I didn't talk about earlier is we still need to keep our employees' judgment. It's still our employees' decision, but definitely AI is helping us with our communication. I know my emails are even better. And so we've really seen that help us currently, immediately. But recently, the third thing that we've really seen AI helping us with is software development. So whether it's Claude Code or ChatGPT Codex, we're putting together software in days, minutes, that it would take us forever to hire somebody to do. Things like, doing routing for trucks from here to Dallas, Texas, use GPS, right? It's pretty simple. But where do you fuel? The fuel prices change every day. We want to buy the cheapest fuel. And how many times are you going to make the driver stop? He's only got so many hours of his logs. And then how is he going to meet his on-time delivery if you stop, 50 times to buy the cheapest fuel here or there and out of route here? So it's a very complicated thing. We put together Claude Code with all of our data. Boom, we now know a better route than we used to and a less costly route. So that's an example of what I see AI is really helping us with this software development. So it's really not replacing anybody, but it's making us capable. I think Lauren was saying it, capable of handling more complex deal and expanding our bandwidth.
That makes me think, Mike, as a former software executive, it's a good thing that the Rogue Valley really wasn't on that adoption curve in terms of software development companies here, because you're right about Cloud Code. It's made organizations like your own be able to kind of bring things in-house. But in terms of our local workforce, the impact really is not seen because of that. In fact, you would probably hire more people internally than you might have before to actually run the cloud coding as well.
Yeah,
So
cloud coding. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. So Lauren, this next one is for you. Speaking of software and innovation, Rogue Disposal has been innovating for a long time, well before the current AI boom. And how do you personally tell the difference between a new technology that's going to stick and something that's just a hype or that you'll just pass on as an organization?
Well, kind of twofold on that. It's a great question on how do you guess if something's going to stick. I get a little bit of a cheat because I do have the larger company of Waste Connection, so there's so many sites across the country in much larger cities where a lot of these things roll out first. Uh, so you can kind of tell from that. But some of these things that don't stick are normally, I guess the difference of them would be if they're enhancing something we're already doing, odds are it's going to stick around a lot more.
Mhm.
And that's what you're seeing mostly. If it's a completely new, innovative, like never seen before, that's where I kind of receive the benefit of being in, a smaller town in Oregon that they probably aren't rolling it out to me first thing. Though I will volunteer. That has been something that we've been kind of proud of at Rogue. If there is something that comes out, I'd like to put our name on it just so we can be part of maybe getting some of the glitches out. Or, a lot of times they go to much larger sites, but they don't have the same problems as we do, right? The rural nature of kind of some of our franchise areas in Southern Oregon, they may not have the issues in, say, downtown Portland that we do here driving out at Applegate, where reception's a little different, things like that. They aren't able to communicate on a normal basis. So I do get to cheat on this question a little bit because I belong to such a much larger organization, and that pretty much guides us. But we hope to try some new innovative stuff here in Southern Oregon, whenever we can. Like I said, we put our hand up kind of for everything so we can kind of get some of the bugs out.
Awesome. Mike, back to you for the next one. So a driver shortage is one of the biggest problems facing your industry right now. As someone who spent decades advocating for the trucking industry at the national level, do you think that AI and automation are part of the answer to the driver shortage, or are they making things worse, more complicated, not related? What do you think
Yeah,
about that?
I think the first thing I want to say is there's a huge misconception of driverless trucks. And I mean, even Lauren, I think, would say the same thing. It'd be great to have driverless trucks, but you still need to pick up the garbage, right? And we still have tarps and mountain passes and snow chains. And you may have autonomous vehicles, which we already are seeing some autonomous vehicles, even class 5 autonomous. I see that we're going to always have autonomous vehicles and better and better, but we're always going to have drivers, excuse me. So the drivers we're going to have in the future are going to be drivers that need to know how to handle autonomous vehicles while still handling their load and maybe certain traffic conditions or picking up garbage cans or whatever they may be doing. So I just want to put that out there. But when it comes to hiring drivers, we've tried to figure out how to hire drivers. Everybody has tried to figure out how to hire drivers. Who's going to be a good driver? Who's going to be a safe driver? And so there's all these very challenging human traits that you can try to measure and say, oh, hey, if this guy was raised on a farm, he's going to be a great driver. But it's not that easy. Humans are very difficult to categorize, and you can never tell who's going to be a great driver. But we are using AI to try to, limit and create like the perfect driver issue. But that's been very challenging to have AI help us with our hiring. So that's something that we're working on, but so far, not really.
All right. Really good to know. Lauren, back to you. I have a question prepared for you, but I'd also love just kind of picking up on Mike's point earlier. When Lauren, you and I had met, you reminded me that we don't actually see disposal drivers jumping out of their trucks and emptying garbage cans anymore. And you shared some of the technology that you're using for that. So I'd love for you to share that with the audience as well as in terms of the technology that's being used, to detect the trash cans and to move them and all of that. In addition to that, it's going to be a two-part question.
Sure.
Uh, Oregon just went through the biggest recycling overhaul in decades with the Recycling Modernization Act, and you are implementing it on the ground here in the Rogue Valley. Where did technology, including AI, help with that transition, and where would you say it fell flat?
Yeah. So if I can remember all that, I'll work on these two questions. The first one, yeah, I mean, several years ago, you had multiple employees on a truck, stopping at every stop, manually grabbing trash cans in neighborhoods and dumping them on the back, which led to, long term, though that was the best way to do it back then. We're looking at some of those drivers that are still in the workforce, and there's a lot of complications for that. You know, muscles, bones, aches and pains, all that stuff. So the technology that we've been in the waste industry has been huge, just in workforce safety, workforce health, all those things as you go on. Technology is also, to Mike's point, has gotten us to a spot where we hire a little bit differently than we did 25 years ago. You're not looking for someone who can go in and grab the most weight in a can and throw it over a rail anymore. You want a handful of different items that you're looking for. So our workforce has changed a bit in that aspect just because the work itself has changed. And to Mike's point of like AI is not really replacing drivers in our industry either. The things that AI is replacing are the people that aren't going to adapt to AI. I think that's who, the people are replacing the people because that's how they're adapting to things. And that's something to be, very conscious of. It's not a bad thing. It's just different. And then the Recycling Modernization Act, we're implementing here. Huge changes. We've seen that curbside. We've seen it at the depot, things like that. AI is still in its infancy, I think, in this realm. I'm not really sure where it's going to go. A lot of the cameras is where we see the most AI improvements and changes right off the beginning of this. There's contamination reduction software. There's overages and extra software, which has really helped, again, the bandwidth of our drivers instead of manually tracking a lot of these things. It's now done digitally, and they just can drive and pay attention to the road, pay attention to the community they serve, and make sure safety is always kind of number one on mind. So that part has helped in that transition. Falling flat, I'm not real sure yet. I don't know if that's an AI thing falling flat, because I think we're so new into this, into kind of the AI boom, and especially in our industry. First things first is cameras. We have not really done any AI stuff in the actual mechanical side of things yet. So that's something to look forward to. I'm sure there'll be some things that come into play and we think they're a great idea, and then we get them out on the road and they're not really going to work. But we've seen that in several different factors, not just AI, whether it's electric vehicles, the autonomous vehicles that Mike's talking about. Like we're one of those industries, and I think Mike falls in the same thing. We're probably going to be one of the last few that start getting rid of people purely on this kind of software, I'd imagine. Hopefully, I got both of those.
Thank you for that. And I should have written it down, but I love what you said about, technology is not necessarily replacing people. People are replacing people with better skills. And I think that's part of what, at Rogue Workforce Partnership that it's part of the message that we want to share is that, the workforce, we need to upskill ourselves. And we have resources available for that. So definitely reach out if you're listening and that sounds interesting to you. Michael, back to you, Mike. So you've watched this industry change for a long time, from your dad's founding days in the 80s during deregulation through the emergence of GPS, ELDs, and now AI. Looking at the whole arc, how do you think carriers, especially smaller regional organizations, should be approaching AI, new tech right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think in some cases, Lauren said he's part of a larger organization, so he's getting the benefit of that. But in some cases, smaller organizations will be benefiting more from AI because they can operate quicker, make decisions quicker, less committees. I don't know if Lauren is part of a committee of AI there, but anyway, I think smaller people can make decisions, smaller companies can make decisions pretty quickly. So this AI is going to be implementing on a very quick basis if they use it right. And the first thing is, of course, it cannot replace judgment. I've had a number of times where chat, I'll tell it it's not doing it right, and it's so obsequious. It says, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mike, you're right. I was wrong," um, and it was. So we need to make sure we keep our judgment first and foremost. AI is not a judgment tool. It'll help you make a good judgment. So that's the first thing I would say. But when it comes to using it, don't think about AI first. Never think about AI first. Think about the problem first. What do I need to do to make more money? What do I need to do to cut costs? What do I need to do to fix this employee problem? Those problems, now you can start to bring AI in, share what you're thinking, share what your team is thinking, and let AI come up with some questions that maybe you hadn't thought about. And then once you figure out what you want to do, whether you're using your own codex code, creating something out of your data, or there's another thing that code and codex really helps you do is bring in other people's information. Like there's a thing called DAT Services Dollar Truck. It has spot market rates and you can post loads. We can get that data, use the codex to write data to help us make decisions on what loads we want to take or what loads we want to give or what pricing we want to do. So we were struggling with doing a pricing model, and we could have gone out and bought a very expensive pricing model that could take us months to implement, cost us tens of thousands of dollars. We did this program, my son Nick did this program over a couple of days and can use outside databases and our own data and create a really fantastic decision-making tool that you can use. So I would say, uh, don't think about AI as an expense or a platform you want to get, but how you want to use it with your problems.
And Mike, when you talk about that data that you are crunching and looking at, have you created new or different roles within your organization, data analyst type of roles, or is this your executive team who's looking at this data? And if so, has your team gone through a different type of training? Or tell us a little bit more about what that means in terms of, the skill set of the team that you have.
Well, I'm lucky in that my son is very smart on this kind of stuff, so he can pick it up and he does it within his own job duties, right? But I think that what's so cool about this is he's probably spent, a week, a couple of hours a week putting together something. He just gives the data, it makes it sound easy. He just gives what he wants to the code, and they start writing it for him. And it really surprisingly, it's not like we needed another person to do this. Yeah, you're going to need somebody that has a little bit of smarts, smarter than I am, to be able to use the codex or the code to do this. But it is remarkably simple. And even if you don't use the code, other AI tools, just in communication and editing, your handbook. We didn't put our handbook through it, and it said, "You've got conflicts within your own handbook." Oops. We want to fix that. So stuff like that can be done without adding new people. And so I think Rogue Workforce Partnership, you know, we need to have some more education classes or, with our incumbent worker programs where, hey, a couple of hours of learning how to do the code or Codex, whoever we want to use, or Chat or Claude or whatever. That would be some great classes for some of our people, but it's relatively simple to do. But start with your problem and then the answers come.
It's really good. Thank you. And yes, we agree about the training for sure. We will be sharing some of that hopefully coming up soon. Lauren, you're next. So your parent company, Waste Connections, is making lots of investments into AI, as you've already shared, including AI-powered sorting facilities at scale. As the person running things here in Southern Oregon, how much of that trickles down to a local operation like yours? And I feel like you've already talked to us some about that, but share with us specifically what that specific tech is.
Yeah, I mean, I think in certain like current sorting facilities, they use AI to replace in some cases, but to really enhance the usability of the people you have on your workforce. So the sorting facilities that are already in place benefit from this right now. You add AI out there, they can pick certain objects out of a running belt in like one fraction of a second versus, human thought you can only move so fast. So, and a robot or an AI ran machine doesn't need a break, doesn't need to eat, doesn't need to sleep, any of those things. So there's like a very right off the bat, a benefit for that. But kind of to Mike's point, what we talked about before, it's still not replacing the people because at the back end, people have to fix that. People have to program that. People have to teach it to do the right things and adjust, what it's doing. And we still double check to make sure it's doing all that. So as far as the tech goes and how it trickles down to us, initially it will go to logistically, it just makes sense because these facilities are so expensive. It goes to the existing facilities now. And I think with legislation coming forward and, as we get into more recycling and better recycling, and I think the entire infrastructure of waste in general may take a little bit of a turn as we try to get more recycle conscious going forward. If it keeps going the way it's going, you're going to see a bit of a shift where people are going to recycle more than they're going to have actual trash, right? There's discussions of food waste going into like yard waste bins so that takes it out of the trash profile. And you have all these different recycling materials that comes out of the trash profile. So now that a bag of a family that used to fill on a daily basis, you may be filling 3 different bins, but they're going to a little bit better channel. So to get back on the question, Southern Oregon's probably a little ways away from getting technology like this because we don't really have a facility already built with this. Not to say that we won't be on a short list of that. Same thing like landfills in our business, there's landfills all over the place. We have one here, Dry Creek Landfill, which is ours. But they're based on density and, length of opening or how long they're going to stay open. Well, things that have been around more urban areas, obviously more people, it's a bigger growth, exponential, more people are moving there, landfills fill up faster. Landfills are going to be hard to open up in this day and age because nobody wants a landfill in their neighborhood, no one wants landfill in their county, things like that. So I think as those kind of start to close down and start to refigure where things are going, Southern Oregon will probably be on a very short list of getting some of these facilities in the future. But as of right now, I think they will fully AI tech out the existing facilities and then fix the bugs that way. And then come back to us where they're ready to be like, hey, I think we need more. And this area is, prime for something like that.
Okay, awesome. Let's switch a little gears. And we've been skimming the surface of the workforce, but there's a question in the chat. By the way, if you do have a question for either Lauren or Mike, please do enter it into the chat and we can make sure to get to it. The question is, when you're talking about your workforce, and we're talking about specifically AI and not people, not technology replacing people, but people with better skills replacing people. Do you see that as upskilling, or do you think that folks need to be reskilled, or how do you look at that? And Lauren, you're still on the screen, so we'll have you answer first. But in terms of your workforce, and when you look at maybe hiring or promoting within or retraining, how do you kind of look at that whole body of work?
Yeah, I like this question, and to be honest, it's a little bit of both. I think as management and as hiring managers or management teams, you have to look at it a little bit differently. And you can't lose faith in someone that maybe is older or doesn't do this on a regular basis. I think it's really up to them. If they want to learn it, I feel AI is so kind of like, it's almost too easy in some aspects because like people will explain it to you. You're like, what do you mean you just ask it? Or what do you mean you just tell it to do this? And I think people want more of an explanation when really that's it. like Mike said, I mean, you may have to verify the information it's giving you back, but you still have to use judgment, and you still have to have some sort of idea of what you want it to do. But it is just that easy. I mean, it's really up to the workforce. Um, as we've added technology, tablets in all the trucks to take away from paper routing and paper directions and things like that. I don't know if Mike has drivers the same way, but you give everybody a chance, and the people that like aren't used to using things like that, it just takes a little bit more time, and they normally get it because it's so intuitive and it's pretty easy to get a couple buttons here or there. So I do think it's a little bit of both, but I do think that that falls into the workforce itself. If they don't want to learn it, they're not going to learn it, and you're not going to be able to teach them. So, so that's the upskilling part of it. The reskilling, I bet you there's a good portion of folks and employees and their workforce currently that are also going through the same kind of, answering questions in their own mind of what we think of AI. They're asking themselves the same thing. So I think it's a little bit of both.
So maybe we add curiosity to the list of job description, somebody who's curious and wants to self-train. Mike, what would you say? That same question, reskilling,
Well,
upskilling?
yeah, our when we went from paper logs to electronic logging devices, it was required by law. And we had a lot of these old time truck drivers who said, I'm never gonna do an e-log. And sure enough, they did, if they wanted to continue to be a driver. And, we've gone through trying to figure out how to answer this question, but typewriters to computers to now, AI, right? And so I don't see AI itself as affecting the workforce as like we're going to a whole group of people are going to go away. Now, like maybe attorneys would be a good thing to go away, but um, no, I'm just joking. But we're using it as a tool, right? So, everybody should know how to do AI. I've got ChatGPT Premium. It knows me. It's helped me a lot of ways. But let me give you a quick example. This is so funny. I had a customer that sent me kind of a nasty letter, and they used some facts that were wrong. And I loaded it into my ChatGPT and said, "What do you think of this letter?" And oh, the customer's got some really solid points. And I said, "No, it doesn't." I said, "This customer's wrong on all these points." And Jack goes, "Oh, you're right. I was wrong. You're right, Mike." And so I'm thinking to myself, I've got to be careful how I use ChatGPT because it could lead me down the rosy path if I'm not careful. So when I think about reskilling or upskilling, I think it's upskilling, not reskilling. Now, if you've got robotics, you're going to need to get some new reskilled people to understand how to run the mechanics of that kind of stuff. But simple AI to me, is a tool. Even the coding part, we should be able to code things fairly easy using this I mean, it's literally, hey, would you take this Excel spreadsheet and, this contract I have to meet and tell me how this works out and give me the data that I can share. I mean, it'll write whatever code you need it to write. And people are afraid of code and it's really, they shouldn't be. So I say upskilling, not reskilling, but if I understand what reskilling means, I think maybe if it was computers or hardware, you need to reskill. But that's my answer.
That's really good. Thank you. There's a question, and we did touch about this, but maybe Mike, you could go a little bit deeper in the conversation about driverless delivery trucks, long haul or local, replacing humans. I think you had said something about even if the trucks drive themselves, the tarps don't, whatever you said. I'm not going to put words in your mouth. Could you
Yeah.
just make a finer point about what you had shared about that?
Yeah. So there are currently driverless trucks, there's driverless taxis, but the taxis don't have somebody in the taxi, but the trucks definitely have a driver in them or a person in them, and they will probably be that way for quite a long time. Just because, can you imagine an 80,000 pound truck running down the road next to you and someone swear? I mean, there's just so much sirens, weather. I think, I mean, even trains, which are on tracks, still have they're autonomous, but they still have engineers in the trains. So I don't see that we're going to be able to get rid of drivers out of trucks in my grandkids' lifetime, if I had grandkids. Um, so there's always going to be that need for multiple reasons for truck drivers, and you hear it all the time. Driverless trucks are going up and down the road. They may not have a driver behind the wheel, but there's somebody inside that truck, and there's going to be for quite a while.
I love
So
it.
yeah.
There's a comment in the chat about this conversation providing hope, Lauren and Mike. So thank you for that. It is a big reason why we're having this conversation because we believe that knowledge, when you know more, you're more hopeful and less maybe afraid or concerned about what's going to happen. So this is a series about knowledge. So I'm very happy to see that. Okay, last question, and this is for the both of you, and I'll let you decide who answers first. There may be transportation leaders, representatives, and employees in our audience today who are wondering what AI means for their jobs, their careers, and the shape of their industry as a whole. And what would you say you would like them to walk away with from this conversation, knowing?
Yeah, I'll take this one since you had the short straw to start, Mike. Um, I mean, I think that curiosity is the big takeaway from this. Um, everybody is going to be skeptical of something new because it's a bunch of unknown factors, right? But AI is new. It's new for everybody, unless you're actually in that industry itself. Maybe it's not quite as new. But be curious. Don't be afraid necessarily, but be curious. I think that as long as you kind of dip a toe and gradually get into AI, it is going to be a very useful tool for all of us. Uh, there's always scare tactics with new things, right? I think on the news or something, you can find an article that there'll be nobody employed in the next 3 years. And I just don't think that's the case. There's just way too many things, too many factors for that to happen. Could it happen in, Mike's grandkids' lifetime? Maybe. But there's a lot of time between all that where we can get a handle on it and really use it for what I believe it's meant for. And I think that's efficiencies. I think that gives us a little bit of, quote unquote time back at our jobs and what we're doing. Maybe enjoy doing our work more than those monotonous, like kind of hateful tasks that people do every day. Uh, and I think that's the benefit. As long as you're willing to accept that it's there or it's here and it's moving forward, I think that's huge. So be curious and start testing the waters. And I think you'll kind of be pleased with what you see.
Awesome. Mike, same question. What would you want listeners today to take away? What's the key takeaway?
Well, when I ask AI that question, no, I'm kidding. Um, you know, first of all, I thought AI is knowledge, right? It's like watching YouTube videos of how to fix something and ask it a question about the Roman civilization. I mean, it's knowledge. AI is knowledge, right? And it's not. AI is knowledge, has a lot of knowledge, but the beauty of AI is not just knowledge, it's connectivity, right? Our world is so complicated. I mean, Lawrence got his business, and I don't understand how to pick up a garbage can, and I've got my. I mean, we all have different businesses, and there's a million things that interact with that in our lives and social media. But if we could have connectivity with everything, and we know how everything interacts with everything else, and I can all of a sudden my experience and my judgment will be expanded because I now understand and can connect and analyze in that connection stuff that I would never have had time or knowledge to be able to do. And I'll get insights that I would never have had, or genius insights really in some cases, because you think about what geniuses did. They knew things and could put things together better than the rest of us did. AI makes us all geniuses, and that connectivity is really so powerful. It's an amazing, wonderful thing that we get to be living life when we have something like AI. So that's my take.
Really good. Well, I want to thank you both for taking the time today to have these conversations with us. It's really important, as we said before, that we continue to have these conversations as a community. You both are important employers in the Rogue Valley. A lot of people rely on your judgment and your expertise in order to feed their families, to have jobs to feed their families. So thank you both for your time, and thank you for everyone who has been listening in and those of you who asked some questions. If my team will now share the PowerPoint slide, you will see on your screen a link for a free AI tool from the Department of Labor that will help you take the next step toward an AI-ready America. I downloaded this on my own phone, and it's kind of a fun, like interactive type of tool to get you started with AI. So I encourage you to scan the code or text the number, explore the resource, and start embedding these capabilities into your daily workflows and be curious, like Lauren said. Also, stay tuned for other upcoming upskilling AI opportunities, roundtable series, and workshops coming your way from the Rogue Workforce Partnership. And again, thank you all for your time today. Find us on our socials. We'll cut these up and share them out so that if you want to hear something again, we'll share it back out again. So thank you all. Thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye.